Hello there, viewers. Welcome to this edition of the Leadership Conversation. And today I'm really honored to be talking and having a conversation with a wonderful young lady by the name Christabel Dadzie. I have known Christabel for about 23 years. Well, our paths crossed about 23 years ago, and it's been amazing to watch her blossom into the beautiful leader that she has become. Christabel, over the last 12, 13, 14 years of her life, has done so much that we are going to try and unpack some of the things that she has done, what inspired her to do some of the things that she has done, the people that she's helping in the community, and what her whole leadership journey is about, and what she thinks that aspiring leaders should be doing at this stage. So on this note, I would like to welcome you, Christabel.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christabel. So I'm just going to tell you a few bits about Christabel. There's too much to unpack in just this introduction, but I'll just give you a few tidbits. And over the 1 hour conversation, you are going to find out a lot more about Christabel. So Christabel says something that I find quite funny. She says that I'm a lover of Ghana, I'm a lover of Africa, and I am a global citizen. Christabel is also a development enthusiast. And over the last 12 years, she has worked in a number of sectors and industries. You would find her in education, in gender, in microfinance, agriculture, trade, human rights, social protection, youth employment, and she has done various UN entities and as well as the USAID. So thank you very much. And looks like you have been so busy over the last 12 years of your life. Can you tell us how you walked into all of these things, or what actually got you doing everything that you've been doing?
Yes, definitely kept busy, not a dull moment. And I think that is important for anybody who aspires to be a leader. Essentially, where would I even start this journey? Let's go. We met in Abri Girls. You were a school prefect. I was entertainment prefect later. So I think the leadership really starts over there. And then I moved on to the US for my undergraduates, did college, and then did graduate school. Now, when I was finishing graduate school in 2007, it was at the time when there was an economic crisis in the US. So although I went to what is called an Ivy League school, one of the best schools in the US, finding a job after graduate school was not easy. And so I have friends who, for example, were looking for jobs for over 2 years and couldn't find it. But I did something different. I actually decided to take what I would get and make the most out of it. And so I chanced up on a job with a public policy firm working on US development. And I went to school for international development. So naturally, you want to work for the UN, USAID. I'd already even done internships at the UN. And so that was the natural fit. But when that wasn't working out, I think the average person would sit and wait. I decided, no, let me see what else is out there. And I opted to work for a firm that was working solely on US policy. I walked into the office day one, and I had studied more of international education, economic development, and I was given a health project. Well, what did I do? I started learning the dictionary of the health, Medicare, Medicaid. I didn't even know what these things were because, I'm an international student. But I said, you know what, I'm here and I'm going to do the best. I'm going to climb the ladder from the very bottom. And I did exactly that. And fast forward to how that worked out is that at the job, they hired me knowing that my interest was in international relations. So it was kind of also a risk for the company that took a chance on me. It was a small business. But they said, you know what, bring your interest on. And so I proved myself for about 3 years. And then I started writing proposals for USAID work. The funniest story of all of this is fast forward, I have these proposals out. I've worked with the company for, I think it was 6 years. And then I decided to come home. Came home, was a consultant with the UN for a year, I think 2 years actually. And then I have a phone call from my former boss saying, hey, USAID has called. There was some proposal. I don't even remember it. I think you would have done it. So are you interested in coming back so that we can bid for it and win? I was actually ending a consultancy with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. I could have extended it, but I was like, seems the stars are aligning here. Let me go back and see how this works. We went, we approached the proposal. We won the bid for a 3-year contract with USAID doing economic growth work across the world. So what happened for me there is that because, if you look back at how I started, because I took a chance on a path that was not necessarily the straight one that fits my career and the good school I had been to and all of that, I was able to grow from within. And so I always try to make sure that whatever I say, I'm picking the lessons, right? So over here, what I say to young people is that you will go to the best schools, you will do, you'll do well, you'll be the top of your class, but life may not always follow the path that you have structured. And when it doesn't, take a pause. Ask yourself, how can within that system that is not necessarily what you think you deserve, make the most out of it, and then push. Fast forward to today, I'm Senior Social Protection Specialist with the World Bank.
Wow, that is amazing. And I think something that I picked up in all your conversation is wherever you find yourself, make the most of it. Wherever you find yourself, do the best. Because sometimes what people tend to do is, okay, because this is not really where I want to be, I'm just dosing time here, I'm just passing time. And so they will stay where they are, or they will go to the place with a very poor mentality and not really impact anyone there or do anything substantial. I want to come forward, fast forward back. You said you moved to Ghana and you thought I'll start doing something different, because a lot of people, what they do is they travel abroad. I've gone to school here, I've done this, and I'm going to stay England or America or wherever. That's where I want to be. And so even when the job market is not working there, they're not ready to move. But then I've got something that says that you can be positioned for purpose. Absolutely. And being positioned for purpose is not always in a first world country. It could be in a third world country. You could be positioned somewhere, but the best thing to be is to be positioned where you feel that God has called you or led you to. And this is absolutely amazing. It's been a wonderful journey. There's something else that you mentioned that I want us to also look at. It says that in your personal life, okay, you work for the World Bank as a senior social protection specialist. I want you to tell us, what does your job entail there? What do you do? And what sort of differences are you making? And so maybe people don't know what the World Bank is doing. No, people don't know what that profession means. But what is the day-to-day? How is what you are doing impacting on the lives of people?
Right. Thank you very much. And so my job in social protection, to explain, social protection basically looks at social welfare. So working with the poorest of the poor, the vulnerable, and making sure that they get the basic amenities they need to survive. And I think a lot of people need to understand that poverty, a lot of the times, is not the fault of the person who is poor. A lot of the times it's a systematic error that gets them where they are. And we find that working with poor people, they think like we do, they have innovations like we do, they have ideas, they just need a little bit of a boost to push them towards what they do. And so what we do is we support the World Bank as an institution is literally that, a bank that is supported by the globe essentially to promote development. And so we work with governments, and within each government, there is a certain pot of money that is allocated over a period, usually 3 years. Now, once that pot of money is allocated, there are different projects and different programming that the government will discuss with the World Bank and take a grant, a credit, or a loan. Credit is like 0.0025%, like really little, because what that does for the country is if they went onto the market to take a loan, the interest rate would be way higher. So the World Bank provides a nice hedge for countries, developing countries, really. Now, once that money is divided, it's decided for the 3-year period, then within that, the countries have a conversation around which projects need what, right? And typically, social protection is one of them. At the bank, we combine social protection and jobs. We look at youth employment, making sure there's availability of work across board from very small businesses to large firms, right? So I work within the space of social protection and youth employment. Now, I could tell you different aspects of my job that impact lives, but one of them that I actually really love is a project that we call productive inclusion. And what that does is basically provides livelihoods for poor people. We provide training, a little bit of life skills, a little bit of business management, simple things like savings, profit and loss, for people that are mostly semi-literate or illiterate. So it has to be very basic. And then also they get a skills training, basket weaving, shea butter processing, dawa processing and such. And then after they've finished that skill training, they get a cash grant, a minimal amount of money to start their small business. And for a lot of people, that changes their lives. And I've seen, and I can actually show you people that we met 3-4 years ago that were in a certain category of very, very poor. And today, with a little sum of money, they've done different things to really help their family. Today, their kids are going to school as a result. If they need healthcare, they're accessing healthcare as a result. And so I take pride in the work I do. What we do at the bank, we are not the ones implementing, but we supervise the programming. So my job is to ensure that if the government of Ghana got, say, $100 million towards a social protection program with different activities, that those activities are being done and the people who are supposed to get the money are actually getting it. So that is the work I do. It's really a lot of monitoring and evaluation, a lot of hand holding, checking, auditing. But my favorite part of it all is to go visit the people, ask them what they need and help them in their access towards getting out of poverty. So that's a nutshell of what I do now.
Christabel, I can tell that a lot of the things that you have done and a lot of the proposals that you said you wrote, even though initially you had to take a job in a place that was not necessarily your end goal, I believe that there's a bit of a passion on the inside of you to navigate towards some of the employment decisions that you have made, some of the proposals that you have written. And so there's got to be something else. It's not a monetary value. You've talked about one of your biggest joy is going to see the people and how their lives have been transformed. So I'm kind of, I think, already picking, but could you tell me what led you to make some of the decisions and take up some of the jobs and write some of the proposal and shape your journey the way it is?
So I've been fortunate and blessed to come from a family where, you know, we were never rich, we were never wealthy, but we were okay. My father worked with the UN, my mother is a lawyer, human rights lawyer. And in my family, education is everything. And so what my parents did for all of us was to push us towards school. And that really is the end goal. So there's still some knocks on the door that I should even do a PhD, but another story for another day. But I really have been, what I've been taught from my grandfather and my parents is to whom much is given, much is expected. And that may sound like a cliche, but I truly believe in that. And it drives everything I do in my life, which is that I was given access to some of the best schools in the world. When I'm done with that, what do I do to give back to my community? It has to happen in my daily life. It has to happen in my daytime job. It has to happen all around me, that I am making a difference. And Gertrude, you mentioned something at the beginning about not necessarily seeing yourself if you've gone abroad and that's where you stay. Sometimes you need to go elsewhere. The reality of the fact is we can make bigger impact in Ghana than I can make in the US. Reason being, the US is a developed country. There's a lot of Christabels and better than me out there. Let's just say it like it is, right? I may do something and I'll be in a pocket of 5,000 people. But when I come home, I have opportunity to make change with very little. When I first moved home, an aunt of mine, she does an evangelism in a certain community, a village in Ghana, and realized that they need more than just knowing about God, you know, so started galvanizing for different things for different people. She reached out to me of a little girl who would never have entered school because of 160 cedis is what? $5, $10. I mean, it's not that much money if you translate into pounds as well. And this little girl would never have entered school. Just think about the impact. Me giving her 160 cedis, today she's in JSS, right? That's it, 160 cedis a term. So, you know, let's say about 500-600 cedis a year. But how much did it take from me to make a difference in her life? So I really encourage people to think about it that way, that there's a lot of work to be done on this side. You don't necessarily all have to move home, but make sure that you're finding a way to contribute towards others. And, you know, we do it a lot for family, but think of people that you don't even know who will just need a little bit of help and it will help their life. And in all of this, that's my passion is around to whom much is given, much is expected. So I need to keep pushing to make sure that somebody's life is better.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you just said, the giving back. I think growing up, I kind of felt, and I don't know if this is the same for other people, that you give back when you have amassed all the wealth for yourself. That's when you give back a little bit to somebody. And that was my mentality growing up. But when I grew up, I realized that you've got to give along the way. Whatever little you have today, there's somebody that's worse off, you give. And I realize also, I don't know for you, but the more you start giving, the more you begin to receive. The more you start giving, doors begin to open for you. So, I mean, I think we should both drive this message home to leaders that don't wait till you've arrived. When you were 60, when you were 70, can you imagine starting at 20? I mean, my little girl said something to me yesterday, and I was super proud of her because we've got an orphanage ministry as well. And God has given us a vision to support 1 million orphans across the world. So we are doing different things. And she said to me yesterday, Mom, can we go through my clothes and my toys? She goes, I want to be able to pack some stuff and give it to other children. And I think you also you hit that on the head because your parents started quite early. You mentioned a grandparent also instilling these values into you. So as leaders as well, just a bit of a sidestep, can we make sure that we introduce our children to the very things that we are doing? We introduce our children to the very morals that we've got. We introduce our children to the journey that we are in, involve them in it, because a lot of these seeds have been planted as children. It doesn't come when the person is all grown up. So let's start beginning to plant it in our children. Let's involve them in what we are doing and encourage them. And that's one that Christabel said. And also, let's not wait till we call it, I have arrived, because nobody ever truly arrives. You will never, if you are that kind of person, you become a storehouse. We have been called to be a channel of blessing. For me, my phrase is I've been called to be a channel of blessing and not a storehouse of wealth. So there's no point amassing wealth for myself. Every wealth that comes, you give out. And I realize, and it has been my testimony for over 20 years of my life, that the more that I give, I realize that the more that I receive. So that's another wonderful statement that you've just told us. Also, I noticed that you have also been the lead author for a recent World Bank Youth Employment publication. Again, how did you get into that? How did you find putting that piece of work together? And who is that piece of work for really? Is it for leaders? Is it for government? Is it for lawmakers? Who is it for?
Thank you, Gertrude. So that is one of my pride and joy, because if you know the World Bank, it's a big global bureaucracy, and you don't just get a sign off for writing a publication. So it's actually a big deal, particularly, again, when you're climbing up the ladder. But like I mentioned at the beginning, I work in youth employment, and we look at different opportunities for youth. In Ghana, I did some work also in Sierra Leone and Liberia on the same. And one of the things that we realized is that before we jump into a program, if you think about it, there's what we call a youth bulge, right? There's going to be lots more younger people between the ages of 15 and 35 than any other age group in the next few years. And the majority of them are going to be on the African continent. What this does is that it opens up an opportunity, but also a challenge. An opportunity if you do the right things to ensure that the youth are empowered and placed in the right places, then they take over the country moving forward, right? But it could be a challenge if you have people sitting idle doing nothing because there aren't jobs for them. And so we wanted to do some research to really understand the youth of Ghana before we jump into programming with governments in terms of some of the solutions. Because what you see is that there's a whole lot of, for example, youth employment programs in Ghana, many. The main ones we counted in government alone were about 20. And those are the main ones. And there's like little ones. And then there's private sector ones as well. So the question becomes, you're doing the right thing by doing programming, but what happens? Why is it that we still have such a big gap? Why is it that youth unemployment is way more than the regular unemployment, right? And so what we found in our publication, one of the major things is that a lot of people think about youth as a homogeneous entity, and that is wrong. Different types of youth need different types of solutions, right? So depending on education level, if you reach secondary education, you may not necessarily do the same things as a graduate, right? A university graduate. If you live in the rural area, it may be different access and different opportunities you may need than somebody who is in the urban areas. And so we need to look at the different categories of youth and shape for them the different solutions so that it will work. That is one aspect. Another aspect we also found was that a lot of the programs that exist don't do anything to see what happens to the youth past the time they finish the program. So they don't have what we call tracer studies to be able to say that I gave you 2 years of programming, 2 years later, where are you? You know, so we check off a box and say we gave youth a job, but the reality is we gave them a job for 2 years, not for life. You know, how do we change that? The last piece I'll pick on also is just our general mindset. And you can relate to this. You went to school in Ghana. The whole idea where education turns into this chew, pour, pass, and forget mentality versus creating versatile youth who are employable for today's world, right? Yeah. They're able to be dynamic within, you know, you may have a computer science degree, but you're a great communicator. And then when you're within your job, you are not only sitting in the back room, but you're also able to go and speak about the company. You know, those pieces, those elements, they're coming up now, but not so much. And so these are some of the different things we looked at in the publication. The publications for policymakers is for potential funders who are looking for areas in which they should invest. It's for academics who are looking for information around what the story is around youth employment in Ghana. It's a pretty rich publication. And then we also pick on specific options for areas for growth, like agriculture, like entrepreneurship and such. And so it was a labor of love. It took a while. It took about 3 years to get to the end, multiple approvals, to go over multiple iterations. I mean, anybody that has done an intense research project will understand. And we had to do peer reviewers who would come back with comments, and we fix and go on and on and on. And so when we got to the end where we actually had a publication that was ready to be shared with the world, that was a proud moment.
Gosh, that's really great. I think big kudos to you. And I think I like the bit that you were doing as well, in that I believe that we are not just responsible for our generation, we are responsible for the upcoming generations. I mean, my Christian background, recently I discovered that we are not just responsible for one generation, I'm responsible for 3 generations. So I'm responsible for my children, I'm responsible for my children's children, and the children of even those yet unborn. That is why we need to leave a lasting legacy. Because this publication is, even if it's not being used in the next generation, the next 2 generations, guess what? It's going to be the building block. It's going to be the foundation for it. And I think that it's a wonderful piece of work. And usually you hear people writing about publications and you're thinking they should be doing a PhD. And like you said, you haven't even decided to do a PhD yet. I don't think you need one, because there's so much great things happening. I also realized that your reach is not just Ghana and America, because you've done it, you obviously said it as well. You've done some work with Liberia, you've done some work with other countries. And so your whole world is kind of really, God is giving you, or you've stepped into a larger territory and you are trying to impact people in different territories. Am I right in saying that? Or again, did you deliberately do that, or?
No, you are absolutely right. I mean, in working in international development, really the goal was to help build economic development across the globe. It doesn't matter where, particularly in developing countries where we can lend our support. But really, look, Gertrude, I don't take my life for granted. It's all by grace. Let's just say it like it is. I have a personal relationship with God. I'm not perfect, but I've seen over my life things and openings that has been done by the grace of God, really. And so, yes, I will study hard. Yes, I will work hard. I will have sleepless nights at work. I push very hard to make sure that I'm doing excellent work. But I do know there is a larger power out there that is also helping me get where I am. And that's something that I don't take for granted for a second. I think this year in particular, 2020, and what is happening in 2021 has been a wake-up call for all of us, you know, that every day if you wake up, you need to be renewed in your purpose for life, whatever it is, right? And you mentioned, I mean, before we started, you're talking about your ministry. And I think we are all ministers in different ways. And the way to do that is, for me, it's just in my life. You know, how can I give? Every day I'm looking for an opportunity that I can make the life of somebody's better. And to me, that is what my ministry is. And so that goes beyond Ghana. And for me, it's really around mentoring, you know, making sure. And so it's not always just the professional piece of it, but every opportunity I get, and you laugh at me, it's in very silly little things. Like I will tell a little child, if you want me to respond to you when you send me a WhatsApp message, don't say hi and stop. I will never respond to hi. What does hi mean? Say what you want to say, but it's those little things. Then once they learn it, then they'll apply it in the job setting maybe 10 years later, and it will work for them. So for me, I think it's always looking wherever you find yourself, and it hasn't been easy. Look, I am so far from arriving. As far as I'm my biggest critic, and as far as I'm concerned, there's so much more I should have done with my life now. There's been pieces of my personal and professional life that have not gone the way that they should have gone. I have failed at things, but I press on, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, while I have life, I just need to keep doing what I can do for humanity, because I was not brought on this earth to be in a small corner in a little box. And I teach myself every day. Let me be honest. I'm not a big fan of what I'm doing right now. I would rather be in the corner I like to be behind the scenes, right? I would rather be the one pushing somebody to come forward.
No, but
right?
but sometimes we've got to hear it.
We've got
to hear it from you as well. We've got to absolutely hear it from you as well. It's not enough being in the back. I mean, what you hit on something which we're going to talk as we go further. Mentorship is a big thing. I mean, I did a piece on mentorship comes with leadership comes with mentorship, because you've got a lot of people springing up and saying I'm a leader, and some of them don't even know much about the industry that they're in. I'm not saying that it's not well and good to step up as a leader, but then once you step up, you've got to find a teacher. And let the teacher, somebody that's been where you are, and accept mentorship as well. People don't accept mentorship, and then they begin to mess things up and begin to mess up things for even the followers that are following them. So mentorship is a big piece. We're going to talk about it because I know you're doing extensive mentorship as part of your personal stuff that you do. But you said something quite fundamental that I want to go back on. That you've had some failures in your life. People think that leaders never fail. And I'm sure if I was going to sit here and tell you about all the things that I tripped up doing and all the time and maybe the years that you wasted, but is it ever wasted? I never think that. I think all the mistakes that we make enriches our journey. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can almost look back if you want to paint a picture and you realize of your life that one step you took prepared you for the next one, right? You may not have won in that. And let me just be real. Like there are certain things that have happened in my life that I still don't understand, that I ask myself, why did I even go in this direction? Why didn't I see the red flags move in another direction? And I have questions. I joke with my family that I'm making a list of questions for when I get to heaven. I have a lot of questions, right? Because I don't get it. But I think that the key about leadership is when you most don't feel like it, you go. Right. And there's days, I have those days where I just literally just want to just stay in there's a tiny corner of my couch. It's not even the whole couch, it's a tiny corner. And I want to stay there, but I can't because I have scheduled, say, a mentoring session, or I have a webinar or something for work. The key is that you take yourself out of whatever you're going through. Bottom line, live for a purpose that is bigger than yourself. Yeah. I think that is important, because when you see it that way, when you're getting up to go and deal with XYZ, it's not about you anymore. It's about following that purpose. And let me say all of this because sometimes I think it sounds a little scary, right? Look, people, I have fun. Look, on Friday nights, I'm going to do my little glass of wine in my corner. I love to go dancing. I love socializing. I have my friend circle, and I love hanging out with my friends. And let's not make this sound like if you're a leader, you have to do this like rigid life and that's all you've got. No, you have family, you have friends, you have a life. Look, we were put on this earth to enjoy it. You need to travel. I love traveling. I would take if I had money, every other week I'll be on a plane. And then COVID happened and I'm stuck home for a year, but that's a different story altogether. And so I look for opportunities to travel, to learn cultures. find those things, because what those do for you, actually, it gives a little bit of a break in the monotony of the everyday life. And then it doesn't make life as stressful when you mix it up a bit. So find that talent. Is it painting? Is it singing? Is it, and do those things in addition to that, job that you have, or in addition to that activity that you do. Because I think there's a saying that says, if you enjoy the work you do, you will never work for a day in your life. And I think that's very important.
I think you kind of read my mind. One of my questions on here, what does Christabel do in her downtime? And it looks like that was my last but one question to you. It looks like you have, and then also self-care and leadership. But it looks like you've already gone ahead of me and kind of answered this question. Somebody asked me a question at one time: is leadership a blessing or a curse? And I think some leaders do struggle with this, especially you kind of feel that it's a bit of a curse when you are in those down moments where you just, I've been through some of those moments where you feel like I have failed so much, or you feel that I could have done so much better with myself, or you feel that, come on, because half the time the people that you're trying to lead can be your biggest nightmare. Can you imagine in the Bible days? I don't know what Moses was doing, but I don't know how I'm going to cope, because I would be pulling my hair out. So you get those moments where it feels like it is a curse, because you've got Moses saying to God that, why have you given me these people, and why am I suffering the way I am? So somebody asked me, is leadership a blessing or a curse? But I like what you said. You need to do something, or you've been called, understand that you've been called to something that is far greater than you. And for me, when I focus on that far greater than me, then I call it a blessing. Because it's something that is far greater than my mere existence, then I've got to sacrifice. I have got to sacrifice. So what's your thoughts on the phrase, is leadership a blessing or a curse? If somebody asked you that question, how would you approach it?
I think it's both. But it's both depending on how you see life. Are we doing glass half empty or glass half full? And I like to look at it half full. It's a blessing because you see the rewards. I gave you examples at the beginning of people that have seen their lives change, of the little girl, Mary, who now can go to school. And I live for those. That's why I'm a very graphic person. So I need to see things, right? And so I look for those opportunities, and then I keep pressing on. When I returned to Ghana, I formed an organization called Ahaspra. It's totally a passion project. People tell me, why don't you quit your job and do it? Because you could take it places. We're basically promoting brain gain amongst Africans, right? People should come home and make a difference. But there's times where we've gone from 11 people to over 2,000 members. And there are times when somebody will just throw a dagger and you're just like, why am I even doing this? Nobody's paying me for this. I'm putting my money into it. I'm putting my energy and effort. And if this is how you feel, then maybe I should just press delete and call it a day. In April, we'll be 10 years old. Kept going. God. Because I found that to be something that I needed to do, something that I felt was purposeful. But at the same time, I'll be honest, it was also partly selfish, because I wanted to be home somewhere on the continent and I needed a support system. So I was like, let me build one that we can all support each other, on this side. But the reality is that it's those days that when, it comes from left field, like, or, a colleague who will just come with something totally bogus and you're thinking, how do I even get up and go back to work, right? But it's, again, that thing. And I feel like people should be careful to create their own story, right? So I'm giving examples of, I live by, to whom much is given, much is expected. Be the change that you want to be in the world. And I'm just picking other people's quotes. These are not Christabel quotes, right? And I'm defining my life based on that. Define your life based on what it is you believe in, right? But then keep to it, so that every time those tough moments come, you keep reminding yourself of them. Now, why do I say it's a curse? It's a curse because it's tough. Look, I've had crying moments for no damn reason. And you shouldn't cry at work, right? You shouldn't cry in your family life.
I have.
I'm just saying.
I have.
Exactly. It should be, life should just be smooth sailing. You do all the right things and you're good. No, right? And sometimes when these things happen, and I will say this publicly, because I think a lot of people create perception of who you are. I cry a lot. I cry, but nobody sees my tears. I'm not, except, I mean, if you know, I'm crying under that pillow. You know, I have my tough moments in my bad day. It helps me actually let it all out sometimes. You know, but I feel like the key for you is after I'm done crying that night, next morning, let's go. We try again.
I've got the phrase that, weeping may endure for a night, but joy's got to come in the morning. Mine doesn't even last for a night. Mine is like an hour. I've got to lock myself away, have a good cry for an hour. And I remember one of my colleagues used to say, oh my God. So I get so broken, so upset. I go in, have a cry. And in about the next 20, 30 minutes, I come back out and I'm a totally different person. And she's like, what just happened here? I said, look, I've had my crying moment. That's it. I'm done. Frustration out of my system. And now let's go. And also, have you noticed that many a times they're very people that you do the things for? They're not the ones that come back to reward you. They're not the ones that come back to say thank you. Because you see, Jesus heals 10 lepers. One of them was a Samaritan man and the rest were Jewish. His very own people. None of them came back to even say thank you. It's the one Samaritan that came back to say thank you. So you've got to be focusing, like you said, on the greater cause, on the bigger reason, on the bigger picture, on the God picture, on the purpose picture. And that is what you have to keep going back to and looking at, and not being embroiled in the emotions of the people and the attitude of the people and the reward that you're going to get back from the people. If you can reach into those depths and if you can rely on those pictures, then you can forget about what people. You will get upset. We are humans. You do have a vulnerable side. We will get a bit vulnerable here and there, but then you continue to press in. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. We started talking about a diaspora, and I like the name.
Thank you. I owe it to my mama.
I always say, is it your mom that gave the name?
Yes.
Okay. But you said something that originally you started it for a little bit of a selfish reason, because you needed resources and tools around you because you had emigrated back home. But I would say for you to continue it, and it's 10 years, it stopped being a selfish thing. Absolutely. Then, because you could have just then, after you got yourself sorted, say, look, that is me, I'm not doing anything about it. So I think it is more than just the selfish. You have gone on to drive this from 11. I did watch your YouTube clip on that, but can you share a little bit with the viewers why you set it up and how you set it up?
Absolutely. So aha in tree means here, and then spora, stem of the diaspora. So the name actually is we are here from the diaspora. And I mentioned that I owe it to my mama because that's actually what she called me when I came home, as a joke. So when we came to the point where really what happened was, when I decided to come back home to Ghana and I got on that plane, I literally had a dream where everybody on that plane was moving home like I was, to go work, to go give back. But the reality of the situation at the time was I was probably the only one, right? And so once I came home, I started having discussions with a lot of these young Ghanaians who at the time, I mentioned the US economic crisis, had been laid off from Wall Street and such, and had come home without wanting to, but it turned into a blessing of disguise for them because they started working in high places in Ghana, in the telecommunication industries and the banks and such, right? But we would have a lot of conversations. I realized we're having the same complaints about electricity cuts, about traffic, about heat, about whatever, right? But a lot of our conversations, while we're frustrated, we're all guided towards the change we wanted to make differently in our different industries. And I had also looked at my brother, who had come home earlier and had a good support network and had stayed, and my sister, who also came home but didn't have the same experience and left, and probably will not, be in Ghana in a way that we are. And I realized what is missing: support. So I brought together a group of friends and I said, look, guys, I'm thinking about this thing. Why don't we put together a support system for young professionals to come home? When they come home, they have a place to ask questions. So we run an online listserv where you can ask any question under the sun. As simple as, I need to barbecue, where can I get the best pork in town? And somebody will respond. And guess what? It makes your life easier. To people finding jobs, to people finding housing. And it's been running in such and growing bigger and bigger. And then we turned into doing in-person events. let's use social networking to connect people in different industries. That has also worked. People will attest to jobs that they found as a result. Now, the one part 3 years on was the mentoring program that you mentioned. I'm extremely passionate about imparting knowledge that I have to others. And we're not talking academic knowledge per se, that comes, but we want to focus on career development, professional development, personal development. And so we're teaching high school students things like leadership, initiative, respect, the things that make you a well-rounded citizen, with the hope that when they add that to what they're learning in the academics, they become full-fledged citizens, good leaders for today and tomorrow. And so that, in a nutshell, is really what we do. It turns into programming and conferencing and all of that. We've been asked to review government policies around, diaspora, around entrepreneurship, and over time have really become, this again, when I come back to the whole idea of defining what it is that makes you do what you do, at times when I have considered this is not worth it, those were the times when random people would call and say, hey, I heard about your organization. We're working on Ghana's diaspora policy. Will you give us input? And we're in a unique position where we lived in the diaspora, but now we're home. So we understand both worlds, right? And we've been able to, as a result, give back to our country in different ways, politically, economically, socially, and we keep improving as we go. So that is a hustle.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. Talking about a vision that evolves, I think your vision over the years have just kind of evolved and evolved and evolved. So, which is why I come back to that. After you fulfill that initial need that you had, you could have stopped. And that's what a lot of people do. After getting that initial need fulfilled, that's it. That's me done. Now I'm going to focus on me and focus on maybe my immediate family, and that's it. But then you have gone on, and now you have found other ways to help. Do you see yourselves doing any more in terms of Ahaspera? Is there anything else that you want to add to this mix?
Oh my, I think maybe that is where I have a challenge. I don't stop. I don't know how to stop. Sometimes I wish I did, because then I also get really worn out. But, I think finding a balance is super important. And I find balance in friendships I'm blessed with, and in travel and in reading, and that kind of stuff. And just in letting loose sometimes. But I really think that is super important. Where do we want to go? We want to be the place where, if you're looking to bridge the diaspora and home, we are the place to go. It was always a vision past Ghana. It was Ghana just because I was coming to Ghana. But I would love to see Ahaspera spring up in different parts of the continent where there's support systems for people to come home, even if it's for a short period. I came home, I left, and I came back again. So I actually now tell my story a little bit differently than I would have when I was first coming and thinking everybody should come and never leave. No, if you come in for 3 years and do a pocket of work and go, that is good enough. That is industry. So we're looking for different ways of also supporting, both the public and private sector to make the transition easier for people coming, but also to connect the dots, to help people find jobs. For me, that is one of the big things, to help each other thrive, essentially. So that is the goal as we move forward, in some shape or form. But just real quick, Gertrude, I think you picked on something that I think is really important, which is the fact that where I am today is not necessarily where I thought I would be in the plan. Example, I never thought I'd work for the World Bank. It was just not on my radar. I was always a UN girl, and my head was always there by nature of my father working, for example, with WHO, and just me getting into international development where I interned and all of that. Today, I'm at the World Bank, different setting, doing the same work, right? Similarly, I think, and I've done different things. Promoting brain gain wasn't necessarily my thing. Everybody who knows me knows that mentoring was always my look in education policy, and that is where, if you wanted to track my life, I would go. But this came up, and it made sense as the right thing to do. And guess what? I'm doing my mentoring in it as also. You see what I'm saying? So it's just putting that puzzle together yourself. It won't always fit the pieces, but it's just to keep doing it, and you will fail along the way, you will stumble along the way, But if you just keep going sometimes, one of the major faults I have is I overthink things. I do. I analyze the hell out of anything in this world. Bring it to me and I will analyze, right? It's not necessarily the best things. These days, I'm trying to be better at sometimes just jumping into things and going through
going with it and see where it takes you. Again, I think it's just stepping up or stepping out. The problem is people are waiting for everything to be perfect.
It will never
everything to be all right, waiting for all the dots to line up, and then they're going to go. But then you've got to jump in. You've got to start somewhere. Usually the first step is always the most difficult, but then also there should be some form of caution. Whereas I'm also, in the past, I used to be on the other end of the spectrum where I'm overly optimistic and I would just kind of jump into things. But then also there should be some due diligence done, just as well as a lot of motivation and drive to be able to get up and go, and don't wait to see the finished product before you even start. There's one thing that I must say, and for me it's a compliment to you, and and I want to leave you with this, is you have added your voice to the conversation in so many places, so many countries, so many industries. And that is what I think as leaders we should be doing. Add your voice. You've got a lot of people who will use their voice to complain in the background. They'll use their voice to talk about everything that isn't right and what could have been done and what somebody could have done, but they never step up. They never add their voice to the conversation. They are just happy to moan and complain. But you have made sure that you have added your voice to every form of conversation that is available to you. Because you said something about after you set up the diaspora, when Ghana was doing something to discuss the whole diaspora thing, you went and added your voice to it. So it looks like you constantly look for opportunities, look for places, and you're not waiting. The other thing that I want to say is you don't wait for opportunities to find you. You seem to go and find the opportunities as well. Could you, these are my two observations of you. You could tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm not, because for me personally, that's another message that I want to drive home to people. Add your voice to the conversation, be the change that you want to see, drive the change that you want to see. It's not enough to just talk and murmur to, especially they talk and murmur to people that have got no impact in changing the situation anyway. Neither do they want to get their hands dirty. A lot of them are sat there, arms folded, watching. And they can even be, those people can even be the very difficult one that limits you and I, or the people that really want to step up, because even though they're doing nothing, they've got an opinion of everything that you were doing. What is that a fair observation of you? Is that a fair observation?
They call them Monday night coaches. They sit and they're the coaches of the football game that has already happened, right? No, absolutely. I think there's a story to be told, and you need to tell that story. I haven't been as good as I should, I'll be very honest. And I said this earlier, in putting myself out there, because for me, it's, just work and your work will prove. But the reality is that, I'm doing these more because when somebody's listening, then hopefully they also see themselves in me, and then they can also be encouraged to keep going. And so I do really believe the little drops of water make a mighty ocean. I think that is so true. Don't wait to have it all perfectly set up. Right in your community, right in your church, right in your mosque, right in wherever you are, there's something you could do. And I tell a lot of our mentees that, everybody wants to say that, oh, I was president of this club. There's only one president, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, everybody is waiting to be the president of their club before they can say they've shown leadership traits. And I tell our mentees a lot that there's only one president, or only a few slots for the defined leadership, but everybody can be a leader in your small corner. Pick on the little aspect, what did you do? What was the difference you made? Maybe you were in a church choir and yours was to go in early and clean the chairs for everybody to come and sit. That is making a change in your community. Maybe you had old clothes like your daughter mentioned, and you gave it out to the orphanage next door. That is a change in your community. So I encourage people not to think of leadership as these definitions, like president and UN Secretary General and, CEO, CFO. And that's the other thing. A lot of youth today, everybody wants to be CEO. And so they create their own company and the company is failing and they're still in the company because they want to be CEO. No, find partners, find people that are better than you, that complement you, and work with them or work for them. I have looked at my life and I'm not going to, I will probably never start a business. It's just not what I am good at. I'm better at being in a corporate setting and shining in it. So I choose that path. So everybody should please look at yourself and choose a path that makes sense. When you're on the journey, if it's not working out, try another one. And this is the other thing is, it's okay that it didn't work out. Even if you are 45, 50, like I said at some point, I'm my biggest critic. I don't necessarily think I'm where I should be. I think I should be a little bit further ahead, right? And I keep looking in and trying to improve and moving on. That's okay. If you were a communication specialist and realize this is not working out and you should try being an economist, go back to school.
It's all part of the journey, yeah.
And it's even fun. You have more to tell in a story. I have a friend that says this, and this is a total joke, but I'll say it anyways. He's like, when we die, we're all going to go and watch the video of our lives. So imagine if you didn't have fun in that life and you're having to rewatch this video for the rest of your life. I laugh about it, but I think it's, for me, a very nice, vivid way to think about what I'm doing here, and make sure that every piece of that puzzle, it's fine. If it doesn't fit one side, go try fitting it in another side.
Yeah. And not every leader will make it to a platform. I think the world today as defined, or people, I don't know, I think we have made it that way, where people define leaders are the people that are on a platform, or you've got to have a platform. So people who have not been called for the platform would want to. Leadership has become about titles. People want to say, I am the this of this, I am the that of that. But then in actual fact, and making other people not step up in leadership, but you could be that leader. And as you said, impacting the lives of one person, two people. We've been called to different levels of leadership. Some will impact 10, some will impact 20, some will impact 100. We are all leaders and we are all making a change in the life of someone. And so that's a great thing. One last thing that I wanted to talk about, self-care and leadership. And I think I put in self-care and leadership here, whereas in a lot of it, it's really chastising myself, because that's one of the things that I'm not great at. When you were talking about wanting to do everything here and there, I think I can be guilty of that myself. And so when I was writing this question out, I thought, okay, people, some of my listeners who know me, they're going to be saying, yeah, I hope you're taking note of this. So yes, I am taking note of this. So self-care and leadership. Why is it important as a leader to look after yourself, look after your mind, look after every aspect of your life, really?
Because we're human and we'll get burnt out. I think let's just fundamentally look at it that way. There are times like yesterday I could barely move my neck. And it wasn't because I'm sick. It's just because I've been sitting for very, very long hours in the last month. So I do need to carve out a break for myself from work, but I keep making excuses and I'm talking to myself right now. I keep making excuses for the different things that need to get done, and I'll go after it gets done. And that's not a good thing. And the other piece also is not even the bodily pains, but the mental. You find yourself slowing down. Being strong for other people is really draining, right? It takes from you, and there's only so much you can give. So I think we need to remind ourselves that in order to give more, we need to take better care of ourselves. And in that process, we have more energy and more vim, so to speak, to give to other people. But when we keep going, and it gets draining, it actually is not even enjoyable anymore. Because think about it. Sometimes when somebody comes at you on something, you ignore it. Other times you're so testy. Ask yourself, check. You realize that you were testy during the time that your own stress levels were high. So we may not even be effective leaders if we don't carve out time for ourselves. So every now and then I have Christabel time, sitting down, chilling with my Netflix. my phone is sitting somewhere, I won't pick it up. I'm sorry. I just need a few hours. That's all I ask. Can I have it?
To be able to catch up. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think we should
Recharge
all
your
carve those
batteries.
times. Absolutely. We should all carve those times in things that we like. Like I love water. So if I'm in water, I'm happy. So every now and then, can I go to the beach and just, and let me just add a plug there. You don't always need people to do those kinds of things. I sit in my car and I drive, and then I call my mom and let her know that I'm driving. And then she'll say, okay, wherever you get to, let me know so I know, right? And that's it. Sometimes I don't even know where I'm going. The journey that I'm in the car with the wind in my ears alone is therapeutic. Then I drive to some beach and then I just stay there because I can, and then I come back. We all need to find those. And look, what did I do with that? I bought a little bit of fuel, maybe 50 cedis, and then I bought a Coca-Cola when I got there and came back. So I'm not creating, I'm not saying that you need to only do thank you when it's expensive. No, sometimes you can just,
the simple
do little things that make you happy. Draw if that's what you do. Write. I do that sometimes. I have all these many pieces of writing that I need to really put together. But I do that sometimes where I wanted to say something, but I felt it was better for me to write it. And I write it and it's off my chest. Do those things, whatever it is, figure it out and balance, because you can be better when you're a happy person. And happiness can be given to you. You have to create it for yourself.
Thanks. I think your mom and dad are really proud to have had you. Certainly, I know that Every Girls is proud to have had you. and I also know that I'm proud to have known you. And I'm just cheering you on and rooting for you and saying that you are doing well. You are doing great. You are making a difference. You are really inspiring someone. And so just continue to do it. Continue to do it. And I want to take this opportunity to say to every leader that is out there, every aspiring leader that's out there, if you're someone that don't even have the title of a leader or haven't even crossed your mind, there is so much more that we can do. Out of today's conversation, you need to have passion for the things that you do. You don't need to wait to arrive at a particular destination before you can give back to others. You can find something little in your own community, helping people, giving back to people. And it's good. It's all right to make mistakes because it's all part of the process. It's all part of the journey. And also, once you take the first step, you begin to realize that other doors begin to open. Don't be so narrow-minded. Don't be so strict that this is all I want to do and not ready to kind of fudge the lines a bit and try and veer off the course a little bit, because there's so much more that we have been called for. I believe that we've been called for better. We've been called for more. And you wouldn't know what you've been called for until you rise up and begin to take this step, really. Christabel, I want to say a very big thank you to you, viewers. I want to say a big thank you for you joining us today, because I've had an amazing conversation. There's a lot for me to go on pick out of this conversation. The one thing that I tend to do is I talk to the leaders and I go back and kind of check out what are they doing, what can I do, what tips can I take back for myself today. So thank you very much, Krista. Thank you, everyone. And I can't wait to see you next week. I've got another amazing lady that's going to be talking to us. Stay blessed.
Thank you.